Boeing and its workers dig in for a long fight, despite strike's cost. This strike is entering its 5th week with showing no signs of letting up, and it's becoming an issue for everyone involved. As you can see here, Boeing and its largest union appear to be digging in for a long fight, even as some striking workers start to look for temporary jobs and the company risks having its credit rating downgraded to junk status. Nearly a month into the strike, negotiations between Boeing and the union resumed this week under federal mediation after a long break, but they collapsed on Tuesday, this would be last Tuesday, with the company withdrawing its latest offer. The two sides traded blame for the breakdown. In a message to its employees, Stephanie Pope, the chief executive officer of Boeing's commercial airplane unit, said that the union had made demands far in excess of what could be accepted if they are to remain competitive as a business. The union accused Boeing of being hell-bent on sticking to the offer that labor leaders had previously rejected for being insufficient to garner the support of most of its 33,000 members. So everyone, like I said, is losing here. The company is losing out on profits, and the engineers who are striking are losing out on things like their salaries, their health care, and so on. But they are so determined to make this strike work and get the raises that they're asking for that they're going to stick it out, which of course begs the question, how did we get here? And here's a tiny bit of backstory. Machinists at Boeing voted Thursday to go on strike, another setback for the giant aircraft maker whose reputation and finances have been battered and now faces a shutdown in production of its best-selling airplanes, which is the Boeing 737 MAX. The International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers said that 94.6% of voting workers rejected the contract, which would have raised pay 25% over 4 years, or 6.25% per year, I think. The 96% approved the strike, easily surpassing a 2/3 requirement. The striking by 33,000 machinists was set to begin 1 minute after midnight on Friday morning. So Boeing, which has been struggling a lot recently, probably looked at its finances and realized that it couldn't reasonably afford to raise their wages nearly as much as the union wanted, and I believe the union was asking for a 40% wage raise over the next 4 years. But the engineers didn't want low raises of 6.25% per year, so they decided to go on strike. And this is pretty significant because the last Boeing strike happened in 2008. But you can imagine that the offer was most likely low because Boeing is doing pretty badly. You can see here their stock price over the last 5 years is down 55%. If you were to have invested $10,000 in Boeing 5 years ago, it would be worth something like $5,500 or $6,000 right now. That's pretty bad. You don't want your investments to be going down. Additionally, they also haven't turned a profit in years. This is Boeing's post losses amid low deliveries, Air Force One cost, yada, yada, yada. But in 2015, they saw a 5.7% increase in profits, then 5% increase in 2016, almost 9% in 2017, 2018 was pretty good, but then in 2019 they lost money. And in 2021, obviously with COVID, they lost a huge amount of money. But that didn't cease even after COVID restrictions started to lift. 2021, they still lost money. 2022, they still lost money. And then this is the most recent data I could find. Q1 through 3 of 2023, they had still continued to lose money. The CEO said that the amount of money that the union wanted was simply too much, and it would make Boeing uncompetitive because of how much money they would have to charge for their jets if they wanted to remain profitable. And frankly, she's probably right. No profit in 5 years is a pretty bad thing. If she says the company can't afford it, based on these numbers that I'm seeing, I feel like she might actually probably be right. Now, that doesn't mean that the machinists don't deserve those wages. It just means that the company's not in a place where it can pay those wages out right now. And that's the impasse that the two groups are clashing on. Boeing says that they don't have enough money to be able to pay these wages, and the engineers are saying that they've stuck out tragic event after tragic event with Boeing for years and years and years, and as such deserve those wage raises. So Boeing has this issue. There are 33,000 workers striking, and they desperately need those workers, and it's costing them literally billions and billions of dollars to not have those workers actively working. So what does Boeing do about this? And it's probably going to not surprise you, but also annoy you. They do two major things. The first major thing they did was filing federal charges against the union. Boeing files unfair labor practice charge against the striking union. Boeing said late Thursday it filed an unfair labor practice charge with the National Labor Relations Board against the union that represents about 33,000 striking U.S. West Coast factory workers. The plane maker said the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, unit representing the workers, had failed to bargain in good faith during the 4-week work stoppage. Boeing said the union had engaged in a pattern of bad faith bargaining bargaining and of issuing misinformation to its members about the status of the negotiations. And before we go any farther, if you like this kind of business news updates, I post between 2 and 3 times a week, and I also post daily shorts now, so please, if you enjoy this, give me a subscription. I'd love to see you around here again. So unions obviously are allowed to strike, but it is illegal for them to strike and then negotiate in bad faith or to spread misinformation about the strike or the company that they are actually striking against. And basically what Boeing is doing is alleging that the union is striking in bad faith. The union knows that Boeing's down on its luck with all the issues they've had recently and the profits going down, and so Boeing is saying that the union is trying to take advantage of this bad situation that Boeing is in to try and force them to give higher wages, because otherwise the engineers will leave and Boeing will absolutely collapse as a company. However, this complaint is really difficult to prove, so we'll see if this charge actually goes anywhere. Now, I said there were 2 things. The first thing was the unfair labor practices filing, and the second thing, again, probably won't surprise you, it's layoffs. And I think everyone saw this coming. Boeing will next month send out 60-day notices to thousands of workers, including many in its commercial aviation division, meaning those staff will leave the company in mid-January, one source familiar with the matter says. A second phase of notices, if needed, could be rolled out in December, the same source said. A spokesperson for the Society of Professional Engineer Employees in Aerospace, which represents Boeing engineers, said that the company informed the union on Monday that 60-day notices to its members would be issued on November 16th. A Boeing spokesperson said that the company had shared the information with managers, including plans for 10% reductions at its commercial unit involving both union and non-union workers. The spokesperson added that the striking IAM members are currently not affected. Brian Bryant, the IAM's international president, called the job cut plan corporate greed at its worst. Boeing, according to Brian, has just turned its back on 17,000 of its own workers, the same people who carried Boeing through crisis after crisis after crisis, year after year, he said in a statement. Now, it is illegal to fire striking workers, but there could either possibly be some exceptions if they were intending to fire those workers before the strike, or maybe they're hoping by November 15th, when they send out the pink slips, that the strike will be over and those people will just quietly be fired anyway. Now, to reiterate, and as you can see here, everyone here is losing. Boeing is losing because all of its profits are collapsing, its reputation as a company is taking a major hit, and the public perception of the company is going down as well, because anytime a major company fights unions this hard or tries to do layoffs while there's also a strike, you take a PR hit. The strikers, of course, are also struggling. They're losing out on paychecks, they're losing out on healthcare. Maybe some of them have mortgages they need or bills from debt that they have to pay. So losing out on the amount of money they are, 4 weeks of not being paid, is pretty significant. The other employees that are not in the strike and still working for Boeing are also losing out because they're being laid off. They didn't even have anything to do with this situation, and they're being fired over it because Boeing is unable to turn a profit. The investors are also losing out here because any investments they made into the company are being eaten away by the fact that Boeing can't figure itself out and turn a profit. Now, if you support strikes, you're probably applauding the workers right now. After 4 weeks going into the 5th week, they're staying incredibly strong and refusing to let Boeing bully them into going back to the workforce. Despite layoffs and despite charges being filed against the union, the workers are determined to wait until they have negotiations and raises that they actually want. But if you don't support unions, then you're probably pretty upset with the workers right now. A very large, well-respected, or formerly well-respected company is losing a lot of money, and probably your retirement at least has some amount of money in Boeing, and so them taking such a huge stock hit over this is pretty bad for you. But whichever side you're on, the most important thing to remember is that companies are not your friends. 17,000 employees who are completely unrelated to this entire situation and were just working their day-to-day trying to work an honest 9 to 5 for this company are being laid off. They had nothing to do with anything that is going wrong at the company right now, but they're gone and kicked out because the shareholders need those profits, and they decided that 17,000 workers is the price that they are willing to pay in order to try and get them. Thanks for watching.